What's up? And today we're gonna be watching, grading, and reviewing Blue Eye Samurai all of Season 1. This is gonna take some time because every episode averages 45 minutes, so I hope you enjoy. In 1933 Japan, that's basically where the setting is. It starts off by giving us a message about how Japan is closed out from the outside world and how half-breeds of half white people and half Japanese people are considered inhuman monsters, basically. And it is mostly music until the 2-minute mark, until it breaks when a swordsman enters a Japanese noodle shop. We can also see in this shop a flesh trader who basically just buys concubines, bends them up, and sells them to brothels. We also meet a relatively chubby character with no hands working in the shop who serves noodles to the customers of this shop. The samurai is quiet but accepts the offer of, buying noodles. Oh, and another thing to know about the, inhuman thing about half-breeds being looked down upon in Japan, I'm pretty sure that might still be a thing, because I've definitely heard of a couple stories of there being taverns where if you are not a full-blooded Japanese person, you aren't allowed to go in, and also stories of, Japanese people not accepting business from other people who are non-Japanese. Anyway, back to the story. The flesh trader is telling the two concubines to eat up because he could fetch a good price for them in the brothels. The man is not treated that well by what appears to be the shop owner, who kicks him to get him to move faster. The man with no hands spills food on the flesh trader, and the flesh trader, being extremely upset about this, decides to stand up and pull out his gun. His gun was a European design, which was illegal, and apparently he knew some people or it was a gift. The samurai decides to stand up, and after a brief talk, the samurai decides to not only cut the gun, but cut off I'm pretty sure it's 2 to 3 fingers of the flesh trader. The flesh trader is, pretty scared by this and says, I'm sorry, you can have my gun, whatever. And after, he says this, he looks into the eyes of the samurai who had blue eyes, which, if you didn't know, is not native to Japan. The person who, said that calls them a dangerous monster and a half-breed, and the samurai, kind of pissed off by this, decides to, well, first interrogate them about where they got the firearm, and also cut off the rest of the man's fingers and break his gun fully. Samurai decides to leave the tavern to go on a walk to the snow. The man with no hands saw this and appears to be pretty interested / intrigued, so he decides to follow the samurai into the forest. The man with no hands begs the samurai to allow him to follow. The samurai does not seem amused at all. The man is persistent and is begging. He says, please teach me, some more stuff, yada yada. And he really is not amused by this. The man with no hands says that he wishes to be like the samurai. Disformed, disfigured, but with strength. And promptly the man is tied to a tree, which I find like hilarious because he could have just been executed at that very moment. The samurai continues on and finds one of those Japanese temples and decides to go in. The samurai grabs a nail and a hammer, hitting it until it glows hot red, and deciding to ignite a sage, I'm pretty sure that's what they're called, onto it, and decides to communicate with the Buddha statue. The samurai says, "To a man lost in the dark, an ember can light the way. Thank you for my ember. I was lost without course for so long. Let this ember's light brighten a path from someplace to the men I seek," showing a wrist, like a wrist thing, like a wrist guard with three marks that appear to be reminiscent of cuts, and another mark on the arm of the samurai, which is an X with a dot at the southern part of it. Quote, "Please guide my steps until I find them. Please give me the strength to let me kill them or let me die. Please protect Sword Father from time and harm." End quote. This was actually like genuinely interesting because like okay, so we know the samurai is out for revenge to killing someone, but we don't know who Sword Father is. I don't know what that means. I'm pretty sure it means like the person who taught you how to use a sword. So this person is on a revenge goal. They are a half-breed from a Japanese person and a white person, and they are trying to kill people. We don't have a hero. This isn't a hero. We have someone blatantly saying that they want to commit murder. This is like actually interesting. Anyway, I'll shut up now. We cut to a meteor falling and a Japanese child dressed in blue wearing a bone glasses that are used to reflect sunlight to make sure you don't go blind. This child is being chased by a gang of other children, which I'm presuming that they want to kill them. The child got found and has been chased up a mountain to a cliff's edge. The child has the same blue eyes as the samurai we saw earlier. One of the children from the gang encourages the child with blue eyes to jump off of the cliff edge into the deep water. And one of the horrible children says, quote, "I know what you are. Your whore mother decided to kill herself because her father was a white devil." End quote. This enrages the child with blue eyes and convinces them to attack the annoying little shit, which they promptly got beat up for, and they got their bone glasses punched off of them. After the glasses fell off, the same little shit that said, killed herself, said, quote, "Told you, round eyes, like a dog." End quote. The little shit, after getting kicked to the ground, decides to stand up and grab a rock to try and beat the child in blue, dressed in blue to death. Before that happens, a meteor with a blue glow around it hits near them. This convinces the other kids to fuck off. What appeared to be a tall, blind old man came up to the meteor and appears to be trying to acquire it. He hits the rock and says, "The heavens throw treasure," as we see him open his eyes, their eyes being cloudy. The man unsuccessfully tries to pick up the asteroid that has hit the Earth. The child in blue, after seeing this, decides to help the old man. They managed to get the asteroid unstuck from the Earth and onto the wagon the man had. The person in blue is going to be just following the man who is carrying the wagon somewhere. Inside a small home, the child in blue was given food and noticed all of the swords that apparently the blind man had made, and all of the tools that he used to make them. After the kid with blue eyes finishes his food, the old man asks him to leave. After, well, not answering for like 2 to 3 seconds, the old man questions if he does have a place to live. The child says yes, and he says, okay, go. Then, as the child walks up to the door, he opens it, closes it, and decided not to leave. He tries to stealthily walk like close to the man working, and the man sighs and says it's a strange metal as he decides to go to sleep. The child is then convinced that they will be safe, so they simply sleep in the opposite corner. When day comes, the child is startled and woken up by the sound of hitting metal, making a gasping sound as they wake up. The man who hit the metal used the hot piece of metal to start his fire for forging. When he was starting the fire, there was a piece of paper with some Japanese kanji that I did not understand. And after the fire started, the man put his hands together in what I assume is prayer. The man says, "Cold morning. It would be nice if someone made tea," telling us that, well, he knew the child was there. And the child is mildly taken aback by this, so they just decide to make tea. The man asked for his tongs, and the child obliged. The blacksmith decides to train the child in his art. Cut to when the samurai has grown up, and they are still walking through the snow. They find a town, a rather large Japanese city. At the gate of entrance to that town, there was a guard protecting the entrance. A woman who had baskets in her arms and a child close to her gave her an entrance ticket that would have been valid if her husband was still alive and with them. The guard denies entrance and says that she requires her husband and is firm on his stance, even when the mother says please. The samurai doesn't have a travel pass, but simply decides to bribe their way in. The samurai, after walking for a bit, is asking for instructions on how to get to a dojo when the samurai is interrupted by three men in horses. The men ask the samurai to stand by. The samurai does not and simply asks for where a dojo is. They say that they are part of that dojo and say that the samurai kind of looks like a blind homeless person, one of the people hitting the samurai with a whip used for horses. But they give the samurai instructions on where to go anyway, and are on their way. The samurai finds a brothel, and while trying to leave its vicinity is dragged in by two workers of that facility. After resisting and firmly saying that they do not want to be within the brothel, the samurai just gets better directions by asking for, the dojo from the workers of there. And then promptly a puppet show that was right behind the samurai collapses with the same person, the man without hands, appearing to have been the one to break the shop. The samurai, after getting kind of annoyed at the man with no hands, decides to buy 3 nights at the brothel for him, just as a way to simply keep him occupied for the time being. The samurai is then seen walking across a wide and icy bridge filled with people, as the samurai is then told to step aside, for there is a princess being dragged. They're being carried somewhere. There is a shot of the princess and the samurai looking at each other, and then we cut to the princess's POV, where she's questioning her father as to why he, like, arranged a marriage, I'm guessing. Inside the palace, we can presume that the old man walking next to her is her father, and she questions him on, like, if she did as he asked. And he basically brushes her off and says to basically talk with a gentle tone. Then we enter into some place where her real father is eating food, and what I assume is her baby brother. He talks about, like, what he plans to do, and, like, he's questioning his daughter as to why she is disobeying his orders as to trying to marry her off. She wants him to marry a basically womanizer and a drunk who makes a lot of money. She questions this and he loses his shit. And, like, before this, he told a story about a pig that first tasted sugar. He said that at first the pig was happy and living a good life, but once it tasted sugar, it got addicted, and it only craved more and more and more until its gums and teeth started to rot, and it had to be put down before it could reach adulthood. He said that his father used to be a pig farmer, and now, he's a lord. He says that what he decides is best, and to do what he is, like, saying to do without any question at all. And then, he loses his shit when his daughter questions him. The girl actually decides to play it smart, picks up a cup from the ground, and sits close to her father, and says, "Father, I fear that," like, she says that she isn't as smart as him and she submits to him, but she says that she would like to live somewhere close to him as she would dearly miss him, and that the old man really wouldn't be suitable as he wouldn't be as smart as someone else, which is convincing enough for her father to choose someone else, a young person who reminded him of himself, who is a samurai. The swordsman and the girl talk together, or well, they're close to a lake, and the girl has a gold comb, and the boy has the samurai, not the blue-eyed samurai, but the different one. He has a sweet, they talk to each other, and it seems that like they do genuinely care about each other, like they are good friends and probably romantic partners before like she brought it up to his father. So I'm guessing this was somewhat planned out, but they seem to be like good friends. Then we cut back to the samurai, who I will be addressing as Samurai in Blue to differentiate the two samurais, as I think we might have like more interactions with them. So the samurai in blue walks up to the dojo that they were looking for. They knock on the door, and the samurai says that they must personally deliver a message to what I assume is the head of the dojo. Once the samurai in blue is let in, they walk up to the messenger, and before that they see some people training, and these people are training with real katanas like that are sharp, so we can assume that they are rather skilled in swords fighting. Now, when the samurai in blue is talking to the messenger, they say that they must personally deliver a letter to the master and not the messenger. The messenger basically scoffs at this and basically says to kick out the samurai in blue. Someone basically tries to force the samurai in blue to leave, but they play their cards right and simply say that they're bound by hospitality to, feed them and like give them a place to stay, because they did boast that they were very proud of their tradition for over 200 years. Once, the Blue Samurai says this, they are thrown into basically a little shitty hut and then they're just given like a bowl of rice water or whatever, and they're just told to eat. Then they look outside and see students training, which reminds them of when they were trained by the blind sword, or not trained, when they saw the blacksmith training someone else. And this person has the same mustache and relative facial shape as the lord who was marrying off his daughter, so we can assume that they are the same person. Now, as a child, the samurai in blue was very intrigued by the lord who was being trained by the blacksmith's technique, we can assume, since their eyes were like widening in amazement and they had that one face shape that kids give when like they see something really cool. Later on, the samurai in blue was making a sword for the lord, and they get a lesson about purity and impurities in katanas, saying that an impurity in a right place can be a benefit, but we must mostly be out impurities, as the more pure a sword, the harder it will be. Later on, when they are done with the katana, the samurai in blue was creating a knife, and the blacksmith asks to see it. They say that it's not bad, but it's not perfect. Then once they picked up the knife, they ask, "What is a katana?" The kid replies, "The soul of a warrior." The blacksmith replies, "A line. On one side is death, on the other is life." A couple years later, when, the blacksmith and samurai grow up a bit, we figure out that they still have not managed to change the asteroid's shape into a sword. The blacksmith says that it is impossible to change the sword's or the asteroid shape into a sword. the samurai says perchance it doesn't want to be a sword. And the blacksmith says all metal wants to be a sword. Later on, the samurai in blue is training with a katana. The blacksmith catches them and says, "Why did you steal this from me?" The samurai just says, "No, no, I haven't." And they talk a bit and they say, "Why must you like the samurai in blue says that they want to be a samurai." The blacksmith questions why, and they say that it is something that everyone can see, but they cannot. And then the funniest line happens where the blacksmith just says, "You're ugly." I know that. That was fucking hilarious. Anyway, so the samurai in blue says that the great shame that they hold is that they are of mixed metal, mixed race by the way, and that there were four white men in Japan, and one of them was their father, and they're going to kill all of them. The blacksmith just says, okay, but like only train at night, and so that's what the samurai does. They put weights on their like hands and legs and just copies what the like students did. So like they were watching and they copied the steps until they got good. And then we cut back to present day when the samurai in blue is told to leave and they basically refuse to, and they push someone back and they basically pull out wooden swords to try and assault the samurai in blue, but then they just, you know, push him through a wall, and then like a big fight scene happens where without even drawing their blade, the samurai defeats like what 6, 8 people and blinds one of them, cripples or breaks one of their arms, and like rips out 5 teeth. And then they basically fight the writer, who pulls out an actual blade, and the samurai in blue just beats them in the face with a piece of wood. Then we cut to a bar, what I assume, and the person, like the other samurai, the fisherman, is told to quickly come to the dojo by the writer or messenger guy. So we come to find out that the other samurai is named Taigen, so that's what we're going to be referring to him as now on. And we figure out that that is the same guy that basically bullied the samurai in blue all those years ago. And so they come together and have a fight. This fight proceeds until they get close to the entrance, at which point the samurai in blue's glasses is broken off, and Taigen actually recognizes that samurai as, the child who they used to bully. So they're given a actual katana and told to, fight with actual blades. So they have this standoff where both of them have this weird, like, either recollection or hallucination type thing, where they both see samurais fighting each other, and the last hallucination is two samurais going to kill each other, and they both die at the end. So they finally start fighting, and the samurai in blue almost fatally cuts the neck of Tengen. Sorry if I pronounce his name wrong, I can tend to forget. But anyway, after that, the samurai gets a fatal cut, or not fatal cut, but a deep cut on the samurai in blue and knocks him to the ground. Now, like, when the other samurai was walking away, the samurai in blue decided to let go of their weights that they had on their hands. So if you remember the thing I was talking about with the wrist guards, that had three notches on them that I thought were slit marks. I was wrong. They were actually weights. So they had one for both of their legs and arms. And at this point, the other samurai was almost winning, but now the samurai in blue should definitely have a major edge over them. So they begin to fight, and the samurai in blue disarms the other swordsman and almost slits their throat before they're told to stop and by the actual master. And the master says, I heard you have a question for me." And the question is basically, where is his brother? And the master is appalled, or not really appalled, but somewhat impressed, because the samurai in blue did all of that just to figure out where someone is. And so he gives up the location, and then this samurai basically just bows down and is trying to leave before getting called a dog, like by the other samurai. And they do this weird thing where after the screen turned to black, we would assume that they killed him, but I don't think they would do that. I feel like they wouldn't just kill off a character like that. Anyway, at the gate, the samurai in blue drops off a gold like headpiece to the mother and daughter that were rejected from entering the village some time ago. And then the samurai decides to take a bath because they're still bleeding. And we cut to the person who some people thought that the samurai killed. It's revealed that he just went bald, got a scalp, part of his scalp, or not part of his scalp, just a hair, and so he just has a bald spot, and so he's really angry about this. And so we cut to the master of the dojo speaking with his brothers, asking for forgiveness. And also the flesh trader is there saying that the samurai is not human, and a shadowy figure with the voice of a white man says to send the four fangs. Then we see four samurai in black armor on horses. We can assume that these guys are hitmen, ergo the four fangs. Then we cut to the samurai in blue talking to the blacksmith, who they refer to as Sword Father, so those two are the same people. And like the blacksmith says that it's too early for revenge, and he doesn't want the samurai in blue to leave, but he's willing to accept that. So before the samurai in blue leaves, he says to take a katana, and the samurai in blue says that they already have, unsheathing it and hitting it on the ground. It makes a very particular sound, and the blacksmith realizes that it was made up of a meteorite. That it was made up of the meteorite that they could not forge. And also another interesting to note is that that sword is not a katana, as a katana is curved, but the sword is of a straight edge, which is a ninjakin, which is a Chinese sword. When the samurai in blue is resting at the place where they're cleaning themselves, they hear footsteps, and mind you, they're still naked. So yeah. Anyway, they hear footsteps and they immediately grab their sword and unsheath it to attack. And we see it is the man without hands. And we figured out that the samurai in blue is a she. And the screen, after it turns to black, we get the there they plays the trailer, and we figure out we can assume that the white man who he speaks in an Irish tone, and he has like reddish hair. His name has to be Fowler because there's no one else in Japan who would logically name their kid that. And that is the end of the episode. Honestly, I did genuinely love this episode, as it was like, for a pilot episode, it was great. It reminded me of Breaking Bad in like how much they set up for us to enjoy in the future. Because not only do we have a student, not only do we have a backstory. Oh, sorry if I peeked my mic. We have a main enemy to like look ahead of. We also have someone that they're hunting, and someone else that they might be like, killing. So, episode 1 I would give an A+. And also, if you're new to my channel and you don't know how I grade things, A+ rank is 0.2% of something, so A+ is 4.20. And then like lowest would be F-, which would be 0 or negative 0.20. So, yeah, I would say episode 1 is deserving of an A+ in my eyes. And dude, like, this episode alone is legitimately 1 hour long. It is basically a movie. Also, I'm questioning if I should like add the name of the episode. So like next episode I'll tell you its name. Hey, I'll do that for this video. So episode 1 is named Hammer Scale, and I'll do that for the next episode. Anyway, episode 2, An Unexpected Element. We cut to, we go to the ramen shop, and the Four Fangs, enter, and the father is cleaning up blood. The Four Fangs ask him about the blue-eyed samurai, the samurai in blue. And someone tells them to shut up, in which point 2 of them pull out their knives and cut the shit out of him. His organs literally go up to the ceiling. Anyway, so properly intimidated, the man, basically shits his pants and just tells them, saying that that he basically abducted his son, which did not happen, but I like that. And then they left. Anyway, so we cut to the samurai in blue walking across a snowy road where she's being chased by Ringo, which is the name of a guy with no hands. And like he's trying to convince her to like teach him, but he's just basically being racist unintentionally. The samurai in blue is now fed up with this and basically just threatens Ringo's life. And she just tells him to fuck off. And then they come to the entrance of another village where in front of the samurai in blue there's a man who tried to bribe his way in which the guard basically says, "I'm not taking bribes," and he tells the others to take him and flog him. And if you don't know what flogging is, it's where you just, get beaten by wood. Or I'm pretty sure it's by wood, I don't know, you could just be getting beaten up. Anyway, the blue-eye samurai was also trying to bribe her way in, which, she gets caught for, or well, not caught for, but she was trying to leave, and she gets told to, "What are you doing? Where's your pass?" In which point, Ringo actually comes to the rescue and says that they're both two boys who are buckwheat dealers and that the blue-eye samurai is his apprentice, which actually W Ringo. Anyway, so after they walk through the village for a bit, in a graveyard, they're talking. Well, talking is kind of one-sided, but Ringo just asks to be the apprentice, and after saying that his basically whole life is a war, and before that, the Blue Eye Samurai says that making noodles is not the same as war, which is, well, yeah, true. She finally just accepts him because he's getting a bit like very annoying to her, which I like that is just hilarious. Because she doesn't even say you're in, she just says nothing and walks off. And I love the like eccentric energy that Ringo has. So the reason why they are at the village is because the Blue Eye Samurai requires a boat. I don't know why, but boat. Then we cut to Taigen and his wife talking, or wife, quote unquote. Anyway, so he is like still pissed off and asking why the samurai in blue didn't just kill him, and like the person that loves him like really is trying to convince him not to, but she fails, and so he's off to try and kill the samurai in blue because he feels that he's disgraced, and if her father finds out, then she's definitely not gonna allow the marriage. Anyway, so we cut back to the samurai in blue and Ringo talking to each other, and they're planning on killing Heiji Shindo, which is the name of the like brother that he got the name of, and then they're protecting the white man who we think is Fowler. I don't know, but like I think. Anyway, so they get to like the town, and it appears to be a ghost town, yet the lights are still on. At which point, subsequently, a drunk man runs past him, and like the Blue Eye Samurai almost pulls out her katana, and like Ringo just asks, "Where did your town go?" And so they just follow him, and we realize that there's just a big celebration, which is why there's barely anyone at their homes. So like, so once they're like fully in the town, in the big celebration, yada yada, they find people on a boat and ask them if they could, use it. But not only are they drunk, but they're saying that it's a big celebration and they have to enjoy themselves and purify themselves, or else they'll have a bad year. And so they're just told to wait until tomorrow. And the Blue-Eyed Samurai, after seeing that every other boat is full, relents and decides to wait. So when they're in town, like, they're in the town and they're basically doing nothing for the entire day, the Blue-Eyed Samurai buys a bell because she really does not like how much Ringo is just sneaking around, and so she just wraps it around his foot and says, "The second you take that off, you are no longer my student." And he accepts this. She decides to make camp somewhere up in a mountain and says that Ringo should have fun here. She also adds that if he really wants, he should just stay here. But Ringo just declines and says that he has to follow because he is her apprentice now. Cut to Taigen chasing the Blue Eye Samurai after finding like a trail. He goes that way and he finds a tree that was cut by her, and he touches his forehead again. He's like hella self-conscious about this because male pattern baldness is. Anyway, so he basically rushes into town, and apparently he has authority to just go in by just showing a piece of paper and rushing in. Interesting. Anyway, the four fangs are also chasing the Blue Eye Samurai, and they leave the dojo, and they're on the same trail. Another thing I also want to know is that if you haven't seen them, they are wearing Oni masks, which are basically demons. Four fangs, demons, yada yada. Just something to note. Anyway, so when they're at the gate, um, they don't show anything. They just come in, pull out their knives, and murder all of the guards and the citizens in the way. Brutal as hell, my guy. Like, what the? Anyway, so we cut to Hijishindo, and the person I assume is Fowler, and they are talking about the Four Fangs, and Fowler says that the only use of money is to pay people to do stuff so they don't have to worry about it. And he says that he's bored as hell because he has been in a castle or an island for so long and he can't leave. But his plan is to go to Edo and also to overtake the shogun, at which point he can do whatever he wants. He's also painting. It's a painting of a bull gutting a man open, and he says that he really hates it that he has all of this free time because he has mastered multiple arts, like just arts, and he says that it's wrong because he has way too much free time. And the thing that he's painting is like another brutal as hell thing. It's like it cuts to a bull head, like not a real one, but what I can assume is a statue with the guts of an actual person on it and an actual like dead guy on the floor with blood everywhere and a katana. And that he used an actual dead guy as art. Like, what the hell? That's brutal and sick as hell. And then we get a cut to when the sword father was talking to a man who wanted to forge a sword. Well, he didn't want to forge a sword, but some guy wanted to basically be given a sword and to kill a drunk Ronin, which if you don't know is a samurai with no master who killed his father when he was drunk. And what he wants to do is get revenge for his father, and he is expecting to die. The swordmaster is he expects something else. He thinks that he isn't telling the entire story, but he is willing to help him die peacefully. Anyway, during this, Mizu is forging the samurai sword, and we come to figure out that Mizu is the name of the blue-eyed samurai. Yay, she has a name. Anyway, next scene, the man who is getting a sword built for him is practicing with a like shitty bamboo katana, like with a katana shape, but shitty. Anyway, so the man who is getting a sword built for himself notices notices Mizu like basically practicing and says that her breath is late. So like they basically he says let's basically spar, but all he really is doing is just beating the shit out of her. And he calls Mizu like a weak mixed breed, like a soft mixed breed for a boy. We know Mizu is a girl, but next scene we figure out that Mizu is actually very like subconscious and like really doesn't like being a girl, or well, what I assume, because she is like covering herself more and like restricting the chest area. And we notice that like when she's sweeping, she's looking at herself and covering herself more. So after the forging of the blade, the top of it breaks off, and they still present this to the bookkeeper, which we figure out like after he assaults Mizu that he actually isn't a bookkeeper, he is an assassin. And, really weird, cause like The swordsmith could tell this just because of like his hands weren't that of a bookkeeper. His hands were too heavy, and so they basically just armed him with, although a broken blade, still a blade. After this, Mizu decides to jump into a pool of water to like fully submerge herself, and then we get a cut to when she is older, with more determination in her eyes. We see that she is still training, but also like she has really good balance. Anyway, so she cuts a tree in half with her katana and hears a twig snap, which immediately gets her on guard. She thinks it's just a bird that was on the tree, but on like right above it is Taigen, who like saw her cut an entire tree in half, which was, you know, cool as shit. But now he's basically realizing that he has to train harder if he wants to beat Mizu. So we cut to the girl Taigen was supposed to marry, and there is a shogun that has been arranged to marry her instead because there is, like, he lost a fight. It wasn't an official one, but he still lost, which means that basically he isn't worthy, or his father does not consider him worthy anymore. And there is a shogun who has been told, like, who has been said to not treat his wives or anyone equally nor kindly, and to act like a tyrant. She really does not want that. And so she talks to her, what I assume is her uncle or grandfather, I don't really know. But she convinces him to run away with her. And they're both like, her father and her are both like almost the same in that when they're set in something, there is barely anything, if not nothing, that can stop them. So her, I'm just gonna call uncle for now, just decides not to intervene and instead actually help her run away. Back to the festival, Ringo is basically just being distracted, but he hears the, like, there's two pieces of wood in this, like, ritual, or ceremony. I don't want to call it ritual because I think that would be rude, but basically whoever wins those gets their wish granted. In a competition, I presume. But anyway, there might be important, I don't know. And he also goes out to try some noodles. He says that they are delicious, but the person who gave it to him says that his are only the second best. So he goes to the first best and says that they are the most delicious thing he has ever tasted. And he's offered a plate, like a job, to clean dishes and also to learn. And so like this is basically where either Ringo stays with Mizu or decides to stay in the place to learn more about ramen. Mizu, after hearing the drums played during the ceremony, decides it might be a good idea to actually go down. But less than a second later, she is ambushed by the Four Fangs, who prepare to fight her, and say that no one shall remember her name. Okay, so I didn't mention this because I didn't think it would be important, but Mizu is also on a cliff edge. And she decides that, like, after almost getting her skin cut, she decides to jump down on a, like, part of it, and so then the Four Fangs also decide to surround her. And one of them gets cut fatally. And while this is happening, everyone is getting, like, at the village, everyone is getting naked and jumping into the water. It's where the ceremony thing is happening. So I don't know, like, again, I can't assume anything because I don't know anything about some Japanese cultures. So, like, if this sounds weird, Please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I just don't know anything. Okay, and during this ritual, there was this lady who was basically holding the sticks. She throws the stick into the water and everyone is rushing to it. And another thing to note is that Ringo, he wished to be great at something. Anyway, back to Mizu. Mizu, after making the first guy she cut fall off the mountain and basically killing that guy, also disarms, and when I say disarm, I mean chops off both arms of someone else, and then they get off the mountain, so we can assume that guy's dead. And also, she like falls down and almost dies, but she manages to keep balance by putting her hand on a rock and doing that like upside down balance thing, which is like really cool as hell. That she managed to keep calm under such pressure, as she also had two cuts on her by this point. Another Fang jumped down and got cut in half immediately. There was this one Fang who had like a slick back hair. I think he's more important because he hasn't died nor jumped down yet. Anyway, Mizu, after cutting the guy, falls down to the ground next to the water. Anyway, so Mizu picks herself back up, and the guy with the slick back falls down and says that you may deserve my true blade, because he had multiple blades on him, but he had one katana on him. And so he unsheathed his katana, and it was the blade that was impure, that had the top of it broken, and they were the same character, like the same. It was the murderer. It was the guy who was a hitman, who became a Fang. So now they're fighting off, and I really want him to. I really want to see his head chopped off. Now during this fight, Mizu notices Taigen, and because of that, she gets a fatal cut to like the lower right side of her abdomen. But also while the guy, the Fang that was charging at her, jumped up, she grabbed her sword and like cleanly stabbed it right in the middle of his armor, piercing completely through. Now, after collapsing to the ground, that guy says that he does not deserve death by a half-breed, and then promptly dies. And Mizu, because, she noticed Taigen behind the rocks, decides to confront him, and Taigen says that he is owed his honor, and they charge at each other. Mizu, of course, falls to the ground because she just defeated 4 assassins on her own. And Taigen, we see him swing his sword down, and that's when the video ends. Beautiful. This episode was beautiful. It sets up so much, and it shows us how far Mizu has come from a weak little shit. This episode is perfect. Another A+. It's 2 in a row. Oh yeah, and something I want to say, like, this isn't important to the story at all, but I actually own my own tiny I have a katana, but it's not fully made. I have this, like, tiny ceremonial one that, like, people would use, next to their big katana. I have that one, that's where you get this sound. That's where you got that sound from. Anyway, great episode. Next one. Episode 3, A Fixed Number of Paths. So at the start of the episode, we see how Mizu was almost killed at birth, but was spared by, there were 2 assassins, one killed the other because the other tried to kill the child. Anyway, then we cut back right to Taigen, who almost cut Mizu's neck off, but decided not to. Which, thank you for not being a little shit anymore. Like, he's less of a little shit, but he's still a little shit. Anyway, Ringo actually just comes out of nowhere and just kicks Taigen in the back and picks up Mizu and says, "Do not fucking touch my master," which is like actually sick as hell. And so Taigen just tells Ringo like where Mizu can be in a safe spot and picks up Mizu's blade and the blade of that murderer guy who got killed. We get a flashback like to when Mizu was a child and her home burning down and her mother saying like before the home burned down that no one can see Mizu's face. And we can assume that Mizu's mother was her biological mother was addicted to opioids, as opioids were a very common thing at that time, and she was using a smoking pipe. And Fowler, by like the guy with red hair, after being told the news, um, promptly kills the guy who told him that by grabbing his head and smashing it on a pointy part of a chair. Then he grabs his sword and promptly breaks the entire goddamn table with one strike out of pure rage. Now, after that, Fowler tells Higashindo to send more troops and that he's mad as shit because he's been planning this for 10 years. And we figure out that Higashindo um, was his basically partner in all of this, his right hand. And so he sends some big guy and he says, prepare a tea party. And we see, like, the next scene is just a lot of guys on horses. Then after that, we see Ringo stitching up Mizu in what seems to be a temple. Once Mizu recuperates enough to hold a blade, but not properly use it, she promptly puts it at Taigen's throat and is basically trying to kill him already. Taigen says, "Stop, you're already about to die. I want you to die with honor." And he basically tells Mizu that he was engaged, but now he isn't because of Mizu. And so he wants to make a contract, like a legal contract, to kill Mizu. Because if you didn't know, samurai duels were legal contracts back then that were like witnessed and whatever. So he gave Mizu 3 days to fully recover so that then they could fight to the death. But Mizu simply tells him that he has other plans and that if he genuinely wanted her dead, then he should have killed her when she was down. And she realizes that she really doesn't need him dead. He just wants his honor back. He really doesn't. He said that he was drunk and weak when they were fighting. Anyway, so after tomorrow, like when the sun rises, they were just talking, Ringo and Mizu, and this giant comes up, the same one that was told to invite them to a tea party. And he actually, like, I was expecting him to, like, immediately start fighting, but he actually gives an invitation to a tea party. And, like, Taigen immediately knows this, that is bullshit, but, like, Mizu doesn't really give a shit. And so she goes out on horseback, and then everyone just follows her. Also, you may be asking why the hell did Mizu even, like, go on the horse? It was actually because in the invitation it said that Higashindo was gonna be there, and, like, Mizu knows that Higashindo is connected to Fowler, which is someone she is trying to kill. Anyway, so we cut back to the person Taigen is trying to marry, and she and again I don't know who the hell he is, but I assume it's his uncle, is with her, and she says that her plan is just to find Taigen, wait for him to kill Mizu, and go home with restored honor and marry Taigen. Simple. And while this happens, they get ambushed. And she runs, and she does get caught, but they don't really do much except take her money and shoes. And she does get hit in the face for throwing a shoe at the bandit. And also the uncle, like we know now that he was a former samurai, because he did pull out his blade and skillfully almost slit someone's throat with it. Oh, and while they're walking, they find, or not find, get, they meet a guy on a horse with a wagon who is carrying dung, or well, fertilizer, whatever. And so they pay him to basically ride them somewhere. Back to Mizu and the gang. Taigen is telling Mizu a story about his father and how he lived and died by how much fish he caught. If he had enough, he would be happy. If he didn't have enough, he would beat the shit out of Tengen, or Taigen. And he asked Mizu if he remembers, or if she remembers his father, and she says yes. Anyway, so they camp for the night, and Ringo gives Mizu some more medicine, and Taigen is complaining about how either they're gonna die tonight or they're gonna die tomorrow with Hiji Shindo at the table drinking tea while they get mercilessly slaughtered. And also, something to note is that the giant guy actually comes up behind Mizu and she almost pulls out her blade, but he just rests his big ass club on a rock next to her and he just walks away. I actually didn't expect that, by the way, like at all. Anyway, so because fuck, I forgot his name. Taigen, because he was complaining his ass off, Mizu says, okay, then let's fight right now, and says that she does not need a blade at all, and so she said that she could beat him with a spear, a rock, or anything, and so she grabs two chopsticks from the soup bowl, that, like, the campfire thing they had, and threw one at Taigen, and so, you know, they decide to fight. And during this fight, there were basically multiple memories of Mizu's past, and Taigen kept on hitting her on like the right side of her abdomen where she got cut, which made the wound open up. And like, although yeah, Mizu won because she could have basically shoved the chopstick right into his forehead. She just decides not to. And Taigen basically just reminisces about when like he was younger and how everyone used to dare each other to touch the door that Mizu used to live in until Mizu went outside and promptly got their house burnt down because people came. So tomorrow comes and they haven't killed each other yet, and Taigen actually compliments Ringo on how much he takes care of Mizu, even though he says that he did pick a ridiculous master. Anyway, so once they finally get to a like ice cave, they get off and the big guy just points forward and that's where Heiji Shindo is supposed to be. Mizu decides to go that way and Taigen is basically told to not go, but he says no because he's the one who is supposed to kill Mizu. And Ringo is actually held back from going. He's told hold, and he doesn't even question it. He just questions, "You talk?" And that was so fucking funny. That came out of nowhere. Oh my god, I love this show. I fucking love this show. Dude, when they actually go like through the cave, you know what's there? Heiji Shindo, and guess what? He actually had tea. They were preparing for a fight. He actually had fucking tea and he was on his own. I love this show. I love it. Anyway, so we cut back to the princess and the other old guy. Again, I still don't know what the fuck his name is, but they talk for a bit. She gets pissed off, but he tells her that women have only a fixed number of paths to be a brothel worker or to be a wife in Japan. That's it. He did tell her that he chose a path for her, but he said that this path was only meant to be for her greater good, as I do think he does genuinely love her. Like, not in a romantic way, but in like a how an uncle would like to take care of their niece kind of way. She gets annoyed at this and just decides to run away, basically. Anyway, cut back to Heiji Shindo and Mizu talking, and Mizu finally discovers that Fowler, like Abijah Fowler, is the name of the white man, and basically he has he is technically alone, but he does have a ass ton of archers behind him. But they are honestly like kind of civil in this conversation, surprisingly. In this, basically like when they're talking, Heiji Shindo says that because you are a formidable fighter, he would like to try and basically bribe Mizu into becoming a lord, and as well as giving Mizu like $50,000. I'm saying dollars, but I don't know how much their currency is worth at that time. And in return, Mizu would have to cut her thumb off. Now, as like it's supposed to be assurance that there is no ill intent towards Heiji Shindo and Abijah Fowler. And I like this detail a lot because it reminds me of the Yakuza in how they would have the pinkies of their traitors and or not traitors, people who have disobeyed them, cut off, and like their soldiers as a way to maintain discipline. Anyway, Mizu of course says no because that isn't her plan. Her plan is to kill the four white men of Japan. Heiji Shindo, surprisingly, actually responds with another offer to get Mizu close to Abijah and almost get him killed. Mizu, of course, questions why, just like why would Heiji Shindo want Fowler dead if he's been making him so much money for 20 years? He says that he just really fucking hates him. Oh yeah, and another thing to note, he did like jokingly say that he had like 500 archers behind him. He wasn't lying. We find that out as Mizu refuses to go in a sake barrel that was going to be used to smuggle her into the castle that Fowler is being held in. So Mizu cuts off one of Heiji Shindo's arms, and now there are arrows flying and Heiji Shindo is running away. Cut back to the giant and Ringo, and the giant is eating or drinking soup that Ringo made. And one of the arrows flies close to the giant, and he says bad sign, and so he picks up his club and tries to kill Ringo, but he vomits, and Ringo swiftly pushes him off the mountain, which I will say is pretty cool. because, like, he used the snow cap, and there was like barely foreshadowing of that, but it was also cool that they did use it, and it wasn't just a one-off thing. So Taigen and Mizu are stuck in like the mountain. Like they ran back, but like they're still in the intersection of the icy mountain entrance, and so they're being pelted by arrows. And Taigen gets hit in the leg with a arrow, and so they're kind of fucked. But then Ringo comes to the save carrying the giant's body on his back. His body is pelted with arrows. It's actually really smart of him. And Mizu and Ringo are genuinely happy that, or Mizu and Tengen are genuinely happy that Ringo's there to save them. Really cool. And once they get to safety, Mizu and Tengen are actually complimenting each other. And Tengen also compliments Ringo, saying that there is greatness in him after all. After a little bit of talking, Tengen asked Mizu why, like, whatever, like, how he knew, or how she knew. And Mizu just said that men like him tend to talk so much that they tell you how to kill them. And it was basically the cheap sake and prostitutes. Um, so after this, Tengen turns around and says, "It's a shame I have to kill you tomorrow," which then he promptly gets knocked out by Mizu with the katana that, like, Taigen gave to Mizu. After waking up, Taigen looks at a sword that is right in front of him with a like letter on it. He opens the letter and it says from Mizu that Taigen is a great opponent and that he will get his fight, but only when her mission is complete. And then a large hand covers the throat of Taigen, or the mouth of Taigen. Then we cut to Heiji Shindo and Abaishif Howler, and they are discussing Mizu and how he is a demon. And so, like, they bring in Taigen in a barrel, like the big guy. Well, I don't think they're the same guy, like, as the one that got poisoned, but some big guy just kidnaps him and brings him in a barrel. And that's the end of the episode. I did love this episode. It was not perfect, by all means. I really did not actually like what, Taigen's, like, wife, or to-be wife did with the whole running off thing, because I didn't see that as, you know, why? Why the fuck would you do that? But I would still give this episode a plus, just because of, like, not only how much it sets up for us to enjoy in the next episode, but also that you can see that there's building respect between the characters, and that it's not just characters hating each other. Episode 4, Peculiarities. The intro of, like, this episode is interesting. It's it's Taigen's to-be wife, who is putting something in what appears to be tea, going into a room, filling a cup, and offering that tea to Mizu. So I think that's just going to be like a metaphor for her trying to kill Mizu. So we start off back at the village with Mizu and Ringo, and there is a death duel happening in this place, basically. And also, like, another thing to note, they're holding their katanas wrong. Like, not their stance, but, like, katanas are supposed to be, I'm pretty sure, on the right side to avoid samurais hitting each other and accidentally killing each other on the streets. I'm pretty sure I just remember that. Anyway, so there's a death duel, and one guy kind of reminds me of this one legendary samurai warrior. I forgot his name. He was like a really young and talented one. Anyway, oh Miyamoto Musashi. That was his name. The one who looks like Musashi won the fight, and Mizu says that he is like a painter. Then, after the fight is over, Mizu says that they need to find a brothel. And also, something else that's kind of cool is that, like, in that place, there are these lanterns that glow pink, which are kind of reminiscent of neon lights that we have today, that you'd see in Japan. So, Mizu enters a brothel, and they talk to one of the workers there, and they say that they need someone called Madame Kaji. I don't know if I'm really pronouncing that right, but yeah. Once Mizu and the lady went into a private room, they were talking about the pleasures of a warrior, and Mizu just says that the only pleasure she will ever get would be the death of a Baija Fowler. And she says, no, I can't help you with that. Mizu somehow figures out that she herself once served, or she probably guesses, that she herself probably served Heiji Shindo and or a Baija Fowler once. And she says that if Heiji Shindo ever hit her, then to be happy for she cut off his right hand. And she is, I'm guessing she's kind of happy about this. And so they go outside and they talk a bit about a Yakuza, I guess he's an Yakuza, because he had the tattoos on his neck that would signify a full body tattoo. Anyway, so then they talk about how he was exploitative and he would usually take half of their money and sometimes more being the women. And also she goes into a story about a mute and deaf girl who she dearly loved like a mother. She bought her from an abusive father who got sick of beating the ever-living shit out of her. In time, she grew to trust her. But one day, the gang leader took her. And, you know. So she asked Mizu to kill her, not the gang leader. Now you may ask why? Why would you ever do that? Well, it's because she needs not only the safety of her people, but also peace given to the girl whom she loved. And she also told her, or she told Mizu, that before she was to kill her, she should put 2 fingers on her lips and make a, like, motion that was reminiscent of a person hugging themselves. And then she said that the lady, or the girl that she raised, would know what that meant and be happy about her death. Mizu agrees to this, and she tells Mizu whatever she wants to know about Abijah Fowler. And after that, Mizu is left in a private room alone. Now, Akemi, which is the person Taigen is supposed to be marrying, goes into the room and serves Mizu tea, even though Mizu is basically unwilling. And so we cut back to Akemi's father talking to what he believes is her, but it was actually a stunt double posing as her. And so after he figured that out, now he's gonna put a nationwide manhunt for, well, what I assume, for her. Then we get a cut to Taigen, who is currently being brutally tortured by Higashindo about the whereabouts of Mizu. And he refuses to say anything, saying that Mizu deserves a better opponent or whatever. Abijah Fowler is there, and he says that it is boring as shit. And he said that he's not gonna wait for Higashindo to eat supper. Which is interesting, because, like, you'd only eat supper with people who you're close to, so maybe Abijah Fowler thinks that Heiji Shindo won't betray him. I don't know. And anyway, Abijah Fowler, while walking, enters a like chamber that is reminiscent of a church. Now in this chamber, which is built right next to the dungeon, there's a somewhat unique detail. He talks with a statue of Jesus, and he says that he hasn't talked to him in a while and that he wouldn't do him the dishonor of asking for a favor now. But he says that the shogun of this nation is greedy and how his people, the priests, were slaughtered. He says that he is planning upon cutting the shogun's neck off and adding a couple churches to this nation. Basically trying to make a deal with God. Or, well, his God. And I think this is really cool because it just shows how bold Abijah Fowler is. Then we cut back to Akemi, who just, like, this is past. She entered the town that Dodua was in, that I was speaking of some time ago, with the guy that looked like Miyamoto Musashi. She sees Ringo and Mizu. They aren't in the fight, but she sees them. She sees that Mizu has Taigen's scarf around her neck, and so she assumes that Mizu probably killed Taigen. Now, something I didn't say because I didn't think it would be important is that Mizu was traveling with a guy named Goro, who sold girls to brothels. Anyway, so they're following Mizu, and they go to they see Mizu going into Madame Koji's shop, basically. And they go in, they see her as, like, Madame Koji immediately realizes that she is an actual princess, and she's told to, like, she can work, but she can't be an idiot, okay? So she is given a very hard task, and she completes it. And which then she decides to finally go after Mizu. She drops 2 drops of what I can assume is poison into some sake, or tea, and enters Mizu's room, with the excuse that Madame Koji will beat her if she does not serve. Anyway, so Akemi tries to serve the poison sake to her, to Mizu, and Mizu immediately discovers her bullshit because, well, one, she doesn't drink that much, or that often, I'm pretty sure. 2, she specifically asked to be alone. And 3, when she gave Akemi a cup to drink as well, she hesitated to drink. And maybe, we don't know for sure, but we can assume that Mizu figured out who Akemi was because she remembered her face when they first saw each other, when she was being moved into the castle. So Akemi decides to try and stab Mizu, which failed horribly, at which point she gets tied up and Rengu is told to watch after her as she goes to try and kill the Yakuza boss. Or, sorry, not the boss, the lady that was kidnapped. Now, during the assassination attempt, Mizu takes off her weights, and we learn that she might be skilled in ninjutsu because she is able to scale walls and, like, cut things and assassinate with relative ease because, light light-footedness is a, like, indicator of someone knowing ninjutsu. And another thing to note is that she does do, like, she honors, her words, and, like, she does the thing with the two fingers to the lips and the hugging thing. At first, the girl doesn't trust her, but when Mizu reaches her hand out, she does, and she hugs, like, Mizu hugs the girl, and, like, just snaps her neck. It isn't a violent one, it's a quick and painless snap of the neck. And she sets it up to where it looks like a assassination attempt from the bodyguard, and like that is beautiful. Like she definitely knows some ninjutsu, as well as like it looked like she wasn't gonna. She made me think that she wasn't gonna kill the girl for a second. And after escaping till the dawn and putting her armor back on, Mizu looks in disgust at what she has done. Then she acquires a map from the lady who basically hired the assassination attempt. And before that, she sees a boy and tells him to basically say that there has been a murder. Now, um, like once this is done, she goes back into her place and frees the was it Akemi? And once that's done, they hear a commotion outside, and it's the Yakuza boss, and he's holding one of the men by like the hair, and his throat gets slit as we see the little shit who like the Mizu told to say that there was a commotion, pointing at them, and I really hope that little shit got hung, but like, I hate that fucking kid. And then the episode ends. This episode was great because not only did it make me like it made the character of Mizu, Taigen, and Akemi feel more human. They made him have more soul. And I love this so much. A plus, my guy. A plus. Moi. A plus. And so everyone is like we can assume that everyone's gonna get slaughtered there. But on to the next episode. Fucking great ass episode, my guy. Holy shit. Episode 5. The Tale of the Ronin and the Bride. Okay, so this episode is a doozy. So there are 3 different perspectives that are happening here. So I will explain them one at a time. So in the current perspective, Mizu is showing off her ninjutsu skills in fighting off the Thousand Claws. By brutally murdering them, everyone goes downstairs into a safe place, and Akemi and Ringo are trying to protect them with shitty little knives in case Mizu dies. Now, then we have the next perspective, when it was Mizu as a child. And when she was a child, she was told to cut her hair, for it made her look like a girl, and she was told to not look like a girl. She is then she like grows up a bit and is looking for a like where opium traders like the white opium traders are coming from. She goes into a shop and asks questions, but is met with a knife to her abdomen. And surprisingly, she doesn't fight back, nor does she get killed. She just gets thrown out. Then, as she is bleeding, walking, she comes across a bridge where there are multiple women who basically um like are basically whores, and one of them is her mother, and she realizes this and picks like saves Mizu and nurses her back to health. And she also says to Mizu that she has found a great husband who is old and in need of someone to help. Mizu doesn't want to do this, but her mother convinces her otherwise. And then we cut to the final perspective, which is the story of a Ronin. A Ronin whose master was killed. And so he swore vengeance and started committing mass homicide upon the enemy clan and their lords, until his battles made him grow weary, and so he found a lady to aid him for the night. After regaining his composure, he stood up, attempting to leave, but the lady asked for him to stop. The samurai proclaimed his vows of murderous intent and attempted to go off, but the lady convinced him otherwise. With some ritual dance of weird manipulation, but now he decided to no longer put his loyalties towards his fallen lords, but to his lovely wedded wife. And that Ronin is Mizu in the second tale. We continue back with Mizu in the first tale, the present, who was ambushed by a group of around 8 of the fighters. She skillfully manages to fight them off, but her wounds are beginning to become more and more dangerous. She decides to try and hide for a while when she comes across a young soldier who is like he immediately gives up, and so she decides to spare him. After going into another room, she is then ambushed and falls unconscious while being choked out by one of the people. Akemi comes in to rescue her by stabbing the soldier in the back. Then we cut to the second tale, where Mizu is learning to cook for her husband. At first, she adds too much seasoning, and he decides to just leave and get back to work. She decides to help out with the work and asks about a horse's name that he was trying to tame for his lord. The name of the horse was Kai, I'm pretty sure. He says that the horse is beautiful and strong, but hard to tame. Tomorrow, she cooks for her husband again. And, oh yeah, something I believe I forgot to mention is that on the night of their wedding, they were supposed to have a courtship, I guess. I don't want to, like, say the words, but yeah. They were supposed to, but when the husband entered the room, Mizu was holding her katana by herself, looking away from him, while she was at bed. He came up to her ear and said that he is no brute. Then he got one of the mattresses and slept by himself. Then, like on the third day, Mizu made shit food again, but the husband found it funny this time, and they were both laughing. Then, later on, Mizu's mother's opium addiction started becoming a bit worse, where when Mizu's husband and Mizu asked her to go buy groceries, she said that she didn't have enough for her medicine. Her medicine, of course, is opium, which is extremely expensive. And they say that they believe that she could go without it. Later on, when Mizu starts like taming Kai, he is impressed with her, and they go on walks, or not walks. They ride their horses together to a peach tree. They cut out peach, like they use a knife, and the husband teaches Mizu how to cut peaches from the tree. And this goes on for 3 seasons. When I say seasons, I don't mean show seasons, I mean weather. Until when Kai is like fully tamed, Mizu says that his lord will be happy. But her husband says that this horse is too good for any lord, and he gifts it to Mizu. Mizu starts crying and actually kisses her husband. Then we go back to the Ronin, who has settled down with his wife, and her wife bore a child. Now, although his loyalties were still to his wife, he heard the call of the Way of the Beast, which was calling for him to continue his murder of the enemy clans. But he resists for his wife and child. And yet, later on, he discovers that his wife was of that same clan. Out of rage, he pulls out his katana, but his wife tries to win her husband back. But it wasn't enough, and so the husband beheaded the child and the wife. But the wife was no regular person. She was a demon, and the demon came back and sought revenge for the sins of her husband. So, she came back with a vengeance, and she chopped her husband's head off. She killed the Ronin, and promptly disappeared into nothingness. Then we go to the second tale, where Mizu and her husband were walking, or her husband asks Mizu what she used to be before her mother tried to make others, look like to be what her mother wants her to be, basically. She said that she was a swordsman, and so they decide to go out and practice sword fighting together. They went out and they were having fun, but Mizu decided to unsheath her sword, asking her husband to do the same. His husband didn't want to, for he didn't want to hurt Mizu. But Mizu persisted, and she went too far. She almost killed him, and she managed to disarm his war scythe and put the blade up to his neck. But then she kissed him. He pushed her off of him and called her a monster. Then, when she got home, she felt genuinely sad. She felt regret for what she had done, believing that she had pushed her husband too far. She wore a white kimono and decided to paint her face in white. When she heard the stampeding of horses, she acquired a knife and went outside. It was an army of warriors. And another thing to note was that her mother was smoking opium. When they were outside, the soldiers said that there she is, the White Devil. And she asked who sold her out, and then in the distance, she saw her husband on horseback, running. And when she felt genuine rage and betrayal, she murdered all of them with. At first, she used the knife to kill the first one, then used the katana to murder the rest. Then, once her slaughter was done, her husband came with a katana in his hand. He begged for. He asked if Mizu was okay, and he said that he came to help. Her mother said that he brought them upon her, and that he wanted, he wanted to kill her, which is why he ran away like a coward. She was smoking opium, and the people, the samurai, um, they were here to kill Mizu, who was a bounty. The husband questions her, and Mizu's mom questions the husband's loyalty to Mizu. While they are both arguing, they pull out a knife, and Mizu's husband kills his mom. But while this is happening, Mizu just walks away. She doesn't care. And then at the last moments, when Mizu's husband says that he loves her, he uses the small kitchen knife he had and throws it right through his heart. Then we cut back to present, when it's Akemi and Mizu. Akemi is right behind Mizu, and Mizu says to her to go, like to run, when she gives the signal. Mizu kicks a pot, making a sound. This attracts around 8 soldiers, and she runs. All the soldiers follow her and ignore Akemi. She breaks down a support from the place she was in and goes outside and tries to block the entrance. There is an army of soldiers behind her, as well as the 8 soldiers pushing the door. She gets overran and falls to the ground with the giant wooden barrier she used to block the soldiers in being laid atop of her, and now stuck between the ground, a wooden door basically, and over 50 soldiers. She unsheaths her katana, pushes her way out of the door, and uses one of her weights to increase the length of her katana's handle. She systematically eliminates each of the soldiers, each time doing this, making her katana's range longer and longer by using the other weights she had on her. By the end of her slaughter, her katana is the length of a war staff. And she finds the Yakuza boss and drags him out, throwing him in front of all the ladies who worked at the brothel. They were given one of the tiger claws and allowed to murder him. Then a couple moments later, 3 soldiers on a horseback, not of the tiger or well, the hunter claws, come looking for Akemi, and Akemi resists, but ultimately is taken away as Mizu is tired and simply allows that to happen. Ringo asks Mizu why did she not help Akemi. He said, "Are you not a samurai?" She proclaimed that no, she is not a samurai. She is here for revenge, and that is all. She has no room for love or friendship. And Ringo, disgusted by this, gives her the bell that she tied to his foot back. This made Mizu look somewhat surprised, as she probably didn't expect this. Then she walked away, still bleeding, still with her katana the length of a war scythe. And the one main difference is that now she is alone. And then we cut back to the Ronin's show. The show was being performed in front of lords, and during the show, the performers thank their lords for enjoying it. And Akemi was in that show, with her teeth blackened. She says that the show was good, but there was only one thing wrong. That she met a demon. But the difference is that demon had no love, it had no mercy. And then the episode ends. I will give this video an A+. Now, something to note is that although I might be giving out A+, an A+ doesn't mean perfection. An A++ means perfection. They had minor flaws that I didn't think were worth critiquing, but still flaws. That's what each episode had, but they were so good that I think that the entirety of the episode was like better than it itself, okay? Highest grade I can give is a 4.40, not a 4.20. I just want to make this clear for those who think I'm just gooning all over the show, okay? And to prove that, okay, in the second scene with Mizu having a husband, how did her wife know that, how did Mizu's mom know that Mizu's husband ran instead of joining in on the fight. How did she know that? Okay, that's one mistake that wasn't ever explained on. So I'm not just saying, "Oh, I love the show. It's so good. You should always watch it." No, no, no. I'm being fair in critiquing, okay? Now, episode 6. All evil dreams and angry words. So the opening of this episode is Mizu being like really close to the island where Abijah is kept, and like she's having memories of Ringo saying that a samurai is honorable, you are not one. So it's showing that she actually does like somewhat care. Oh, and if you've forgotten, Taigen is still in there. Another thing of importance to note is that Mizu is carrying a toolkit with her. This toolkit has multiple things. Anyway, so she follows the instructions that were given to her, and she finds a sewer grate, which she opens up, and oh, and like you have to note this, she still had her katana in the like shape of a war scythe. So she goes down there, she lights a fire, kills a rat, which I think is supposed to be symbolism for her losing peace or like some level of sanity. She comes across multiple, like hundreds of human remains that are pure skulls, like infant skulls and fully grown skulls. So this is probably supposed to like show us the absolute cruelty that Abijah Fowler is supposed to have. After running across a literal graveyard worth of bones, she comes across this really thick wooden door. And if you remember, she had a like toolkit with her. So she opens her toolkit and tries to pick the lock, but accidentally she trips a trap, and so the entire basement area is getting violently flooded. I'm not talking about like water slowly rising up. No, it is just like pouring down. So that knocks her out for a bit, and then she wakes up, grabs her toolkits, and tries to pick the lock successfully, opens the door, and swims up for air, where she opens another grate and goes inside what seems to be a storage room. And in there, she opens her toolkit and realizes she only has two tools left. A, like, a wire attached by two pieces of wood, something that you could probably use to either choke someone out or cut open a lock. And some weird metal things that she doesn't take. So, like, she takes the wire cutter and puts it in her jacket or whatever she's wearing. And she opens a door, and by the way, her katana is still in the war scythe, like, thing. War scythe shape. And, like, that's what, like, one critique I actually do have. If she was trying to sneak through the base, why would she have it like that? Because, you know, you're trying to be sneaky. Why would you have a long-ass spear on your back? Anyway, so there's two guards. One is on top, one is on bottom. She tries to sneak past them by hiding behind some pillars when the guard at the bottom notices the water and goes to investigate. Mizu shows off her ninjutsu skills and climbs atop the pillar, then chokes out the guard with the wire she took. The guard was also holding a war spear, and he drops it, but Mizu was trying to like pick it up where it fell, which alerted the other guard. Now, the other guard started running for it, so Mizu picked up her katana, shaped like a war scythe, and just threw it straight through him, which is actually impressive. Now, the blood of the guard she just killed is going like on the concrete, and there was a door behind him, and like the blood seeps through or past the door. Then another guard that was behind that door, who was right next to a large bell, sees the blood and starts ringing the alarm. At which point Mizu breaks the door open and cuts him in half. So we cut to the person Akemi was supposed to marry, not Taigen, but the other fat guy. Abijah Fowler and Heiji Shindo and some other guy talking about how they're going to overthrow the shogun. And at that point, some guy walks in and basically tells them that Mizu is here. And Heiji Shindo, because you know he lost his arm, he's eager to watch and torture Mizu. So we go back to Mizu, and she is running through a long corridor with walls that start to close in. These walls have spikes protruding from them. Or, well, spikes that, like, pop out. And when she, like, skillfully dodges most of them, one of them goes right through her ankle. And at this point, I thought she was just gonna cut off her ankle and start running. But no, she just uses her katana to cut the metal bars around it. One thing I do like about this show is how much they portray Mizu as a badass. Because in the next trap scene, where she has like the floors fall down into pits of spike, she almost falls in, but uses her katana to like stab it into the wall and jump into like the next safe place. Then an entire gang of samurais come in, and she just beats the shit out of all of them. She is very tired, but like really cool as hell. And another thing, those like stick things I was talking about, those were actually bombs. Like, you know, the German bombs that they would pull out and then they would throw. She kept that. And so, like, when she was surrounded, after beating up some of them, she just pulled it out and threatens to kill everyone. And so after murdering, like, almost all of them, the last one is just so scared that he willingly does anything. So he grabs the katana she stuck into the wall with the head of one of his friends. And so he's just spared for not being, you know, an enemy. Which I like that. I like that because like it shows she isn't absolutely merciless, but she is ruthless to an extent. And we also, like, in the next place she enters is actually a bakery. And everyone is scared when they see her because, holy shit, there's a samurai covered in blood and wielding a sword. So she dips her foot into, like, everyone just ignores her basically, but she dips her foot into a bucket of ice and drinks what I assume is water. Then she goes up to the next floor, where it is a peaceful Zen garden, and there is a monkey holding a flower. And the flower blooms, and the monkey, like, blows the flower's pollens into her face, which drugs the shit out of her. And then an entire gang of monkeys fall down from the roof, where she is surrounded and getting beaten up, but she decides to take the German bomb I was talking about, and she, like, ignites it and throws it behind the monkeys. I thought this was supposed to be a distraction, but no. And then, anyway, it blows up. It was also kind of smart of her because she used the monkeys' bodies as protection. So, the entire floor collapses. She washes her face again, and then goes back up and goes past the monkey room. In the next scene, she opens a door that leads to nothing but darkness. And before she opens it, she hears Swordfather saying, "You'll get yourself killed." um, her husband saying, "You're a monster," which I don't know how she even remembers that, because different tale. But, and then Ringo saying something else. And anyway, so she goes to the door, plunging herself deeper into the darkness. So she falls down in what appears to be a prison. And in front of her is a giant. A giant man with a giant club. And she's walking past. And I'm thinking, okay, why isn't she looking at the enemy? He could easily just, come up with, like, he might have quiet feet just like Ringo. Maybe she forgot that or something because of the drugs. Anyway, so when she's walking past, the prisoners look at her and their eyes glow red, and her Mizu's eyes glow a bright blue, at which point all of the prisoners turn to ghouls. And the big guy, he opens the gates, allowing for all the ghouls to come out, and he also hits a chain which knocks down a bunch of candles. And I really like what they did here because, like, they turned off the lights and it was just like flashing lights of Ringo getting bitten and then, or not Ringo, Mizu, Mizu getting bitten by the ghouls and just cutting all of them down. I don't know what happened to the big guy because right after this scene he just disappears. Weird. But anyway, after walking forward a bit, Mizu hears Ringo saying, "Master." She turns around and says his name. Then she starts looking through the jails where she finds Taigen, still alive, but heavily wounded. And so she picks Taigen up and they walk together. So Mizu and Taigen go up and they find the Tea Party guy. Like, somehow, he's still alive after that mountain fall. He still has no cuts on him, or whatever. And, like, one thing I want to know about this episode is that it doesn't focus on the plot, but it focuses more so on the art. Which is sad because I'm grading on plot, not art. But if you haven't seen episode 6, I would definitely recommend watching this episode just for like the how much effort is put into the art itself. So when those two are fighting, of course, Mizu wins, but she uses up her other bomb to shove it into his neck and pushes him into a fire that we are not told how it starts or even shown. So now, after the blast, Mizu wakes up and Taigen is slipping off the edge because the blast blew a hole in a wall that exposed the outside. And so she grabs her katana, stabs it through the wall, also grabbing Taigen, and they climb up. And like while they're climbing up, they see that there are an ass ton of soldiers there already. And so they just climb up and up and up until they get to the place where the Shogunate, Abijah Fowler, and Heiji Shindo are. At which point they stab through the wall, killing the not important guy. And Mizu is just in there, being fueled by literal rage alone. Abijah Fowler, by the way, isn't a skinny guy. He is one of the largest and most muscular people you'll ever see in the entire show, without him being a support character. But anyway, Abijah Fowler kicks Mizu's ass, just is wailing on her. He shoots his gun, breaks her sword, the bullet is lodged into her shoulder, and now he's just beating the ever-living shit out of them. So, Mizu, realizing that this fight is basically fucked, grabs Taigen and jumps through a window. And also, before she does this, we learn that all of the bodies that were in that like graveyard down there were his half-breeds. And before she jumps, she remembers Ringo. And she says, okay, I'll teach you. Before grabbing Taigen and jumping out the window, falling what seems to be 90 feet, and breaking on some ice. Mizu and Taigen are drowning, and they can't get up, until we see a silhouette. That silhouette is of Ringo. And that's the end of the episode. Ooh, that episode was actually good. Like, I swear to God. This episode would have gotten a higher grade if it wasn't for the... Like, if I was judging on art as well as plot, then this would definitely gotten a higher grade. But, like, I have to be fair. But I do love what they do with the whole Ringo part. I would give this a B+. Just because there were some plot holes that weren't really explained. But overall, it was an immaculate episode, by all accounts. Now on to episode 7, Nothing Broken. So the episode opens up with Ringo and Taigen in a... or not Ringo. Mizu and Taigen on a cart, and Ringo, being confirmed to be the one who had saved them, is knocking on the Sword Father's home. And the Sword Father doesn't answer until he hears Mizu's blade hit the ground. In which, you know, he allows them to come in. Then we cut to Abijah Fowler looking at his castle and saying how much he hates it and how much gold he's wasted. Then he bids it adieu, which means to not know when you're gonna see something again in French. But you're basically saying goodbye. So Abijah and Heiji Shindo, just like while they're going to Edo, just ball out, eat fancy food, have like go to brothels, do weird ritualistic stuff. Best way I could describe it. So after Abijah Fowler tells Heiji Shindo where the guns are coming from, it's shown to us that yes, Heiji Shindo really does want Abijah dead by telling the other lord that like Akemi was supposed to marry to go scour fishing ports for guns. And he said that he would personally execute Abijah when they were done with this. Then we cut back to Akemi, who has her teeth blackened and is being prepared for the marriage. And apparently, I was wrong in that she wouldn't be marrying the fat guy. She would actually be marrying someone else. Now, when she is with her father says, "Trust me, I'm doing this because I know what's best for you." When he leaves, he hears a bird chirping. She hears a bird chirping. Then she opens the veil and lets the bird free. She chases after the bird when it goes outside. And then the bird is shot down, straight to the heart, by her husband. Akemi realizes how silent and ruthless her husband will be and genuinely does not want to marry him. Then we cut to Akemi wearing a white robe on an edge of a roof, looking down. She is considering jumping off when, again, we still don't know his name, his uncle, comes in and says, "No, what the fuck are you doing?" And then he said that he brought a gift for her, a game set that they used to play together. In which point he said that he wasn't the best warrior, he wasn't the best person at his position, he didn't like it, but he said that he really did enjoy it when she was around. he said that, why do you think you love books? It wasn't because you were sneaky and you got to go past your father's books. You got past your father to read his books. He said that he planned this out and that it was because of him that she is so smart. But he didn't say it in an arrogant way. He said it in like a respectful way, like a very kind and respectful manner. And then we cut back to the Sword Father. Basically, what they're doing is nursing Taigen and Mizu back to health, and Ringo is still mad at Mizu for, not doing anything. And later on in the night, Mizu talks to, the Sword Father and says to him, "Can you repair my sword?" He says, "No, just no." He says that the sword was too pure. He says that you can't just simply melt it down and bring it back up. He says that Mizu had forgotten what he had taught her. He says that if Mizu looked at herself when she was a child, the child would run. So Mizu, being stubborn as ever, decides to go out and try and forge her sword by herself, by digging up iron from the ground. And then we come back to Akemi. Akemi is being escorted, um, yeah, to her place of wedding. When she stops the, thing she's being carried on to talk to Madame Kaji when she sees them. And she just says to Madame Kaji that she hates the person she's getting married with, yada yada. But Madame Kaji says that men like that are weak because they think that they penetrate women. They want to be babied and spanked. They think that they conquered armies just because of that. Madame Kaji tells her that she can do almost anything. She can take control of her life. She just has to try. Anyway, we cut back to Mizu, who built a forge for herself to try and reforge her katana. So she throws in her broken pieces, and when it cools down, she cracks it and pulls out an ore. But the ore itself just cracks, and it just reveals her blade is still in there. Oh yeah, and we haven't been told yet how the hell she managed to forge a katana by herself out of that meteorite, but whatever. We cut to Tengen, or Taigen going to the same village where he used to bully Mizu, and him regretting it. So he buys her some fish dumplings and goes to her when, she's done working for so long and gives it to her. Then we go to Ringo and the Sword Father, and they're talking about what it means to be useful. And Ringo says that he wishes to be a swordsman. And basically Swordfather says that he doesn't need hands to be a swordsman, yada yada. And they talk for a bit. Come back to Mizu and Taigen, and they talk for a bit. They were having some fun. But when Mizu said to Taigen what's going to happen and why he didn't tell her, he said that he has to go to Edo now to save Akemi and yada yada, basically. That he will kill Mizu when it's over. Then we cut back to Akemi, who is in a royal feast. And so she's forced to eat some disgusting ass food, mainly pig blood and fox brain. And then the last dish is the most disgusting of all. It is the bird that um, her soon-to-be husband shot. That, like, he murdered right in front of her. And so she consumes it either way because not only is she probably planning to kill him, but she's also playing it smart. So we go to Akemi, and she is given two birds from her husband, or she's told, and she gets really mad at this, so she goes to her husband and slaps him. But that's when his husband said sorry, like he didn't mean to, and that was a gift actually from his mother. So now she actually felt like kind of bad about this, and like he wasn't that ruthless of a person. He was actually really timid, and like she basically got him to open up. And then we cut back to Mizu, who was told that she became too pure of a demon basically, and that it, what they do is nothing but art. Life is nothing but art. To have perfection, you must give it your all. What you enjoy and what you don't. Your beauties and impurities. So, Mizu, like, decides to build another dome where she can reforge her sword. And what she does this time is, while reforging her sword, she throws in her knife, Ringo's bell, and she was given the sword father's, like, things that he uses to pick up hot metal with. I forget what they're called. But she throws that in as well. And that works, and now she has her new sword. And then we cut to Heiji Shindo's men looking for Abijah's guns. And they say that they cannot find any in a letter. Then Abijah Fowler opens the door. Heiji Shindo is in there reading a letter from them. And he says that he has to show something to Heiji Shindo. When they go outside, there is like a lot of things there, but mostly none of them are guns. And they, like, far away there are four prisoners, like not too far away, but like, four condemned men, and one of them has their like thing unveiled and is told to shoot a bow at Abijah. He misses, and Abijah starts building a firearm out of the very furniture that he was sent. He said that to basically sneak in so many guns, he had to modify the design. And he also told a story about when he was younger, about the rebels under O'Neill and how they starved because there was no food. Everyone was starving, right? And he said that their parents died young. He fed his sister on his blood. Kept her alive for like an extra week or so. Then he said that he protected her body from the starving, as well as when he was about to bury her, he cut out her kidneys. He said that that was the last thing he ever did, because that was what he had to do. And when he shot his rifle, he killed the man. He also killed the fat guy, the Lord, that was working under them. He said that he thinks that he was planning to lead the coup without them, but he doesn't know that Heiji Shindo was, betraying him. And so basically Heiji Shindo now controls the combination of both their armies. As well as, because he killed him, they lost their spy. We cut back to um, Mizu, who actually didn't forge her sword, but has turned it back into an ore. An impure ore, but now an ore. And so she gives it to the sword father, saying that he would like her to forge a sword, or she would like him to forge a sword for her when she comes back, and if he determines she is worthy of it. And so Ringo and Mizu say goodbye to Swordfather, and now they're on their way to kill Abijah. Cut back to Akemi, who summons the, ladies she used to work for, and says that she would like to buy out their contracts, as she needs new friends in the court. They accept this, and one of the ladies is crying, saying that she showed so much respect and kindness to her even though she was an ass. And she revealed that there was a plot to Akemi to take over the shogunate. So she goes to her father and tells him this. And his father takes her close to a window and thanks her for telling her this, and then he throws her off. Akemi is rightfully shocked because, like, what the fuck? And then two soldiers come up, kidnap Akemi, and throw her in a dungeon. Akemi's father says that you should always have trusted me, and that she would be safe during when this happens, because he'll lock her up in a dungeon. Personally, I give this episode an A+, as although we are not told or shown any, reason as to why, besides money and power, as to Akemi's father being evil, it is still a very good episode, and I did really enjoy it. Episode 8, The Great Fire of 1657. Okay, so the start of this episode is basically Mizu and Rango are talking about where they should meet up after the whole event happens. And then once we finally look inside the home of the shogunate, they portray their loyalties and whatnot. And then we go to Abijah Fowler going to the two sons of the shogun talking, and we figure out that, the son that Akemi is supposed to marry is, he has a stutter. So he's shy. he's also not a brute. And yada yada. Abijah is kind of mad that, the person he's made the second richest in all of Japan is still, annoying him. And then, he would never meet him. So then we cut to Akemi and her father talking. And, it's basically her father saying that isn't this what you wanted? Isn't this, I'm killing that brute of a husband for you? Because, he actually isn't an asshole. Anyway, and then Seki, which is, again, I finally remembered his name, but I still don't know his position, comes in, killing both guards and saving Akemi. And he points the katana at his throat, and then both of them leave, locking her father in there. By that time, Mizu comes to the one lady who ran the brothel and tells of her what is going to happen and that she should grab her girls and leave, not knowing that, one of them got murdered, and telling her that yes, there of course will be an attack on the shogunate and that she should run. Okay, so Mizu, Akemi and her uncle run to a corner. They are cornered by 5 different guards. Mizu comes up, kills all of them, And like if I'm talking fast, please mind that this episode is like extremely action packed. And then we cut to Ringo and Taigen. Ringo kills a guy. Taigen meets up with him. They ally each other. Then they find where the Shogun is. They breach in and almost get themselves killed to send the message that there is an army coming to kill the Shogunate. And now, like, Akemi's husband and Taigen are like in the same vicinity, so you got some tension building up. But now they're warned, and so they all go to a safe spot. And Akemi, like, no one knows where Akemi is, and Ringo isn't where he's supposed to be because he's with Taigen. So now Abijah Fowler's entire army, which is an army of like over 100 men with guns, come to a bridge, and there are multiple men on there. He tells them to fire. They do. He kills all of them. Then he advances, and the arrows fall just short of their range as the guns hit their mark. They advance to the bridge. The archers are told to fire. They miss, and all of the archers are dead. And Akemi's father smiles at the army coming to them. And in less than 3 minutes, they manage to get to the Shogun's corner because they have slaughtered everyone, and so now they're at the like main gate that is close to the Shogunate's home, and it is being locked down heavily, but like, and they're planning on throwing oil at him. But then Heiji Shindo, who is behind the walls, talks to the captain, and as soon as the captain starts moving, he shoots him in the back of the head. Heiji Shindo was, of course, within the Interior Council. And so he just starts systematically killing everyone, and he opens the gate to allow Abijah Fowler and his army within. And so now you have Abijah and Heiji Shindo right in front of where the Shogun is. And it is beautiful. And also, we see that Akemi left like the vicinity of the castle, and Mizu is on top of a castle not yet seen by the others. So Abijah breaks into the place, killing a lot of people. Then he bursts down the door where the shogunate and everyone else is. And what it is he's basically eliminating the people. He shoots the shogunate in the head, and people are so scared that they're gutting themselves right in front of him just so they don't have to die by a bullet. And he says that before he kills everyone, he said that his goal was to flood their lands with his people, his music, his milk, his bread, until a face like his was prettier than theirs. He wanted a revolution. And that's what he was doing. When he killed the shogunate, and when he was about to shoot one of the sons in the face, Mizu came in and stopped the bullet from, cracking the son's skull. The royals and everyone else flee because there was a secret backdoor exit that we weren't told about. And after, like, most, if not everyone, gets eliminated besides Heiji Shindo, Fowler decides to run for it. Also, there's this cool scene where Mizu dodges a bullet, and it's like really cool. I wish I could show you, but copyright. Oh, actually, I was wrong. Heiji Shindo was on the ground, and Taigen saw this, and so Mizu and Ringo left to go somewhere else. Taigen picks up Heiji Shindo, and Heiji Shindo is trying to bribe him. But what he does is He grabs his sword, picks Heiji Shindo up by a hand, and says, "He will kill you with a sword," and stabs it through his heart. And he said it like this because that's how he was being tortured. And this is beautiful. Beauty at its peak. So we cut back to Akemi and Seki running from the fires. And if you don't know what fires I speak of, I will tell it to you later. They run and they run and they reach a gate and they see an army of a soldier's army with firearms and decide to lock the doors behind them, using one of their guns as a shield. They do that successfully and they run. Seki gets shot in the back. He bleeds and bleeds, and he tells Akemi that he did all he did to make sure that she was free, so she could enjoy life. Then we cut back to Taigen and Mizu. Taigen and Mizu found Fowler and they are fighting alongside each other. Taigen gets brutally wounded, and Fowler, after getting hit one too many times, decides to run. Mizu stays behind and tells Taigen to leave because this fight isn't his to worry about. He agrees and leaves. Then Mizu follows Fowler and basically Fowler ambushes her in a small room. And after being knocked to the ground and stabbed, Mizu takes a candle and throws it at the door that Fowler was running to. It quickly ignites a blaze as she pulls the dagger out of her, and Fowler sees her for what she is, a monster. But not a monster made human, but a human-made monster. She is the most dangerous monster because it was partially because of him that she exists. And so they keep on fighting and fighting until the entire castle is set ablaze. The entire town is set ablaze. And he tells her that she needs him alive. Because she asks why. Because he knows the magic word, she doesn't. He says, London. Because she knows of another white man, but not the other two. And then we cut to Akemi and Taigen. Taigen says that he wants to leave and be happy and free with Akemi, but Akemi says no. She says that she wants to be great. And so she decides to stay, and Tengen decided to leave. Back with the lords, they trap the other lords in a place where the fires are still roaring, and they decide to be the only two ones left alive. Her father was engulfed by the fires, but not dead. Akemi's father. Once they leave town, the lords meet up with Akemi and they converse. Akemi says that her father is alive and that she would be glad to keep him under her care. And she has decided to stay with the shogunate family. We cut back to Ringo and the swordmaster. They are conversing, Ringo says that he waited so long, but Mizu wouldn't come back. The Swordmaster says, we can wait forever for nothing to happen, or we can work. And so they begin to work. Then we go to a boat and we see a Baija Fowler in a cage. And outside of that boat, in the front of it, is Mizu. The end. Man, this final episode was great. It was beautiful. It was the best thing ever. It was almost, and I mean almost, an A++. But the one gripe I have about this is why the hell would Mizu give a Swordfather the ore and not come back to tell Ringo or Swordfather that they were alive? But besides that, this final episode is the best thing I've ever seen. The last 2-3 episodes were the best thing ever. And yes, I gave episode 6 a B, but it's because it was supposed to be focused on the animation, not the plot. But we're going to London, and we're gonna kill the others. This story is genuinely perfect. Not perfect, but amongst the higher echelon of perfection. I wish for this story to continue, and I wish for Netflix to continue in its creation, even though it's probably not going to happen and it's been so long. Now, it's time for what you all have been waiting for, where we take all the points and divide them. So, because this show got an A+, 7 times, we just do 4.20 times 7, and then we add 30.20 to get 32.6. Now we divide that by how many episodes there were. 8. And so now we get the total. A. Just A. Moi. Just a 4.075. An A truly deserved. And I hope you enjoy. Have a great day, great night, and a great life.